It's hard to remember a time without Sonic the Hedgehog these days. The little blue dude has become ingrained in video game culture and even pop culture history by this point. However, after 26 mainline games and more than 200 games total, if you include all of the spin-offs, not all of which were good, Sega's Blue Blur seems to still be going strong with the release of Sonic Superstars. So, to celebrate the success of gaming's favorite Hedgie, I wanted to go back to revisit the first 3 games in the Sonic franchise, the game that introduced us to the character and made him a part of our lives. So whether you're a crazy Sonic fan or a passive appreciator, join me for the fastest mammal alive, revisiting the original Sonic the Hedgehog Trilogy.
おいおい、みんなが君を随分と待っていたぞ。ビュンビュンハリネズミ、ほら来た、ソニック登場。この面白さったらもう目が離せやしない。カットビアクションゲームソニック・ザ・ヘッジホッグメガドライブから。
Danita Stokes, president of HAG.
It's bad enough that Sega Genesis has the most 16-bit games, but this new Sonic the Hedgehog, oh, he really doth my doilies. They say he's incredibly fast. Well, what's the hurry, mister? And about his attitude. Smarty pants. Why can't it be more like that nice boy Mario? Oh! Little brat!
Now, get Sonic free when you buy a Sega Genesis system at its new price of $149.99.
Sega had a hard time breaking into the home console space, despite their strong presence in arcades with beloved games like Periscope, Duck Hunt, Jet Rocket, and Zaxxon. Nintendo and Atari already had the living room video game scene tied up. Throughout the 80s, they were repeatedly obstructed from success to being overshadowed by Nintendo and their beloved mascot Mario. Eventually, Sega knew that they had to do something to overtake their competitors, and part of the plan involved creating a hero, a mascot that people could love and latch onto the way they had for Donkey Kong, Link, and Mario. Under the orders of Sega's president, Hayao Nakayama, an internal competition to create the character that would represent the company was held in 1990. About 200 designs were created for the competition, but only 8 of those made it to the final selection. Among those 8 was a proposal from the dynamic duo of Naoto Oshima and Yuji Naka. Oshima had been workshopping a game with a fast protagonist that can run through loop-de-loops, and Naka really wanted to make a racing game after his previous project was cancelled. What they first produced was a prototype starring a rabbit that used his ears to pick up rocks and throw them at enemies, but that gameplay didn't flow well with the speed they wanted to be front and center. That's when Yuji Naka revealed his concept for a ball form attack that could be used in the air as well as on the ground. This move became the core of Sonic's gameplay. But at that time, Sonic didn't even exist yet. The character was still a fast rabbit, which didn't feel right with the new gameplay mechanics. That's when Oshima went to the literal drawing board to create a mascot character for Sega that was cool, fought for what he believed in, and challenged the establishment. Several animal and human characters were created, but the one that stuck was Mr. Hirazumi, which translated to English is Mr. Needlemouse. This character, a hedgehog, perfectly encapsulated what they were looking for and made sense in gameplay. Design cues for the final version of Sonic were taken from Mickey Mouse, Felix the Cat, Michael Jackson, and even Santa Claus. With Sonic's design and gameplay in place, their presentation was finalized and complete with prototype merchandise that included a one-of-a-kind Sonic plush and they took all of their materials to Sega's president for review. Hayao Nakayama approved their proposal, and Sonic the Hedgehog went into production in April 1990 with the newly formed Sonic team. Just over a year later, after months and months of experimentation and iteration, Sonic the Hedgehog hit store shelves on June 23rd, 1991. If you weren't around back then to experience Sonic's launch, let me just say it was a big deal. The game was praised by critics, developed an immediate, loyal fan base, and became the best-selling home video game of 1991, with more than 2 million copies sold. It went on to sell over 14 million copies by 1997. The title's fast-paced gameplay, memorable characters, and impressive graphics made it an instant classic. Many even consider Sonic the Hedgehog to be one of the greatest, most influential games of all time. Its success catapulted Sega into a true competitor to Nintendo, and it wasn't long before people held Sonic in the same regard as they did for Mario, a character that had already been around for several decades by then. As a result, the Sega Genesis outsold the Super Nintendo 2-1 that holiday season, and Nintendo was securely dethroned. All of this because of a little blue hedgehog. People loved Sonic and immediately wanted more. With millions of potential sales on the table, it didn't take long for a sequel to be considered. However, things didn't exactly go so smoothly.
あのソニックが新しい仲間テイルスを連れて帰ってきた。前作を超えたスケールとアクションで息もつかせぬ面白さ、超ハラハラ超ドキドキの超速アクション、ソニック・ザ・ヘッジホッグ2 Welcome to Sonic Land メガドライブから世界へ向けて。
Now, when you buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1, you'll get Sonic 2 absolutely free. Sonic 2 handles stubborn stains, embarrassing bald spots, no problem. It even slices and dices, makes thousands of julienne fries. But wait, you can play it too. This free Sonic 2 is a $54.99 value. You get 2 Sonics for the price of 1. Sonic 2 fits easily into any tackle box. Made from a space-age polymer plastic for years of family fun, and pets love it too. Buy the Sega Genesis that comes with Sonic 1 and get Sonic 2 free.
Act now. Wiener Dog sweater sold separately.
A potential Sonic sequel had so much going for it. Sega was on top of the world with 65% of the 16-bit home console market share. All of the hard work creating the characters and world had been done, and the sudden influx of cash from Sonic the Hedgehog sales set them up to make something amazing. Unfortunately, not all was well within Sega. Sonic Team broke up shortly after Sonic the Hedgehog was released. Yuji Naka left over salary disagreements and general unhappiness with Sega's management. In-game designer Hirokazu Yasuhara joined up with Mark Cerny's Sega Technical Institute in California. Thankfully, Cerny believed in Sonic and went so far as to pitch Sonic 2 to release by Christmas 1992, which was less than a year away by that point. Yasuhara was on board already, and Cerny convinced Yuji Naka to join them by visiting his apartment on a trip to Japan. Sega greenlit Sonic 2, gave the project a bigger budget with a bigger development team, and told them it had to be ready to go in 9 months. No pressure. Sequels to popular games tended to fall short of the originals at that time, and the Sonic 2 team wanted to avoid that. They accomplished this by pulling out all of the stops to make their new game a full evolution of its predecessor in a number of ways. For instance, there was actually a limit placed on how fast Sonic could move in Sonic 1. That cap was lifted for Sonic 2, giving him blinding levels of speed. In the first game, Sonic could only build up speed from a slow walk. Yuji Naka developed the now iconic Spin Dash for Sonic 2, allowing players to reach maximum speed instantly. Things were shaping up very nicely for a game built on insane speed. However, the limited development timeline caused some hard decisions to be made. For instance, one of the original concepts for Sonic 2 was a time travel narrative where Sonic and Robotnik would travel back and forth in time to see and zip through multiple versions of the same stages. Many of the final game stages came out of this initial idea, but the original concept would have taken too much time to develop, so it was dropped. Some stages still have the dinosaur-like enemies that would have been in the prehistoric stages. Another evolution made for Sonic 2 was the inclusion of Tails. It was Yasuhara's idea to add a second character so siblings can enjoy the game together, with Tails being more suited to younger or less experienced gamers. It was just a small idea, but it went on to completely change how we saw Sonic games and introduce yet another beloved character. Making sure Tails was implemented properly and multiplayer gameplay work took 6 months. Thanks to the great ambitions of the development team and the short development time, Sonic 2 wasn't playable in its final form until September 1992, with just 2 days left of dev time on the clock. Over 100 people got the game over the finish line, and their work didn't go unappreciated. The entire team celebrated in the Sega Technical Institute warehouse with a Sonic-themed cake. 2 months later, in November 1992, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was released. Sega and the entire dev team waited breathlessly to see how it turned out, but their worry was unnecessary. Sonic 2 was yet another hit for Sega, and many fans even consider it to be better than the first game. It went on to sell 600,000 copies on its first day and made $450 million by the end of 1992.
Hey, come on! 体が踊る絶叫体験を君に約束する。超音速アクションは止まらない。
Non-stop power play. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 from Mega Drive.
Sega! Has it got huge new zones? Yeah! Twice as big as Sonic 2? Yeah! The new 3D special stage? Yeah! And the new game save feature? Yeah! Do it!
New Sonic 3 is now available at a store near you.
Sega!
New Sonic 3 game cartridge and Sega Genesis sold separately.
Keeping the blue ball rolling, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 began development in January 1993. The large team that made Sonic 2 split into 2 groups, one that began work on Sonic 3 and the other which made Sonic Spinball. The Sonic 3 team wanted to up the ante again by transitioning Sonic into an isometric game with 3D graphics that made use of Sega's in-development virtual processor chip. It became clear that hardware wouldn't be ready for launch by the time the game was supposed to be completed, so the idea was ultimately dropped. It was picked up again several years later for 1996 Sonic 3D Blast, however. Thankfully, that decision didn't hamper the Sonic team's creativity. They wanted to make the game even bigger, with a deeper story and more lore to expand the Sonic universe. An extended development timeline allowed them to include concepts that they had to drop for Sonic 2, as well as create stages that were 3 times larger than the ones in Sonic 2. It also facilitated the creation of another iconic Sonic character, Knuckles, the Echidna. Sega team was amped up and excited to make the best Sonic game ever again, but their creativity kind of caused things to go overboard. The game they were making was getting too big to be contained by a single Sega Genesis cartridge. The solution ended up being to split the game in half, with Sonic 3 being released alongside Sonic and Knuckles, which was essentially the same game with a few minor differences. There was a lock-on function developed that allowed players to combine and connect those cartridges to get the full intended experience.
Sega presents one champion of good, one pawn of evil,
It's Sonic and Knuckles. Not only is it the greatest Sonic game ever, it also comes with lock-on technology. Plug in Sonic 2 and use Knuckles to play in a whole new way. Plug in Sonic 3 for 34 megs of power, new worlds, and surprise endings. Sonic and Knuckles with lock-on technology, only on Sega Genesis. Sonic and Knuckles, other game cartridges, and Sega Genesis each sold separately.
Size and content issues aside, Sonic 3 was another leap forward for the Sonic franchise. It maintained the spirit of what people loved about the first two, while implementing new power-ups, secret areas, fresh gameplay, and even better graphics for the time. It was critically appraised yet again and sold more than 3 million copies.
No running!
No running!
No running!
Hey! No running!
Now, we will fast forward several decades to take a look at Sonic Superstars. In the time we skipped, there were a ton of great and not so great Sonic games. But the strength of the brand never went away, not even after Sega pulled out of the home console business to focus on developing and publishing. So what we have in Sonic Superstars, a game released 32 years after the first game, is a return to the basics. From its lush 2.5D graphics, with elaborate backgrounds and course designs to its cast of characters, Sonic Superstars manages to look and feel like a classic 90s Sonic game and a brand new, modern entry at the same time. It's incredibly impressive, and it shows that Sonic can exist as a massive, open-world 3D action game like Sonic Frontiers and a smaller, more classic experience. It's also worth noting that Sonic Superstars began development after the success of Sonic Mania, a full-on Sega Genesis-style 2D Sonic game created by true blue Sonic fans back in 2017. Thanks to that game, it's clear that Sega finally understands what Sonic fans want after all these years. The kind of gameplay, attention to detail, creativity, and ambition that drove the development of the original trilogy. I just want you to know that I loved playing Sonic the Hedgehog games since a friend of mine introduced me to the first game on the Game Gear. That's when I became so fascinated with Sonic that I wanted to rent Sonic the Hedgehog 2 from Hollywood Video along with the Sega Genesis Model 2 when I was a teenager. My love grew even more since I had been a Nintendo fanboy, but Sega Genesis system, along with its library of games, made me a fan, especially with the 3 Sonic Sega Genesis games that I enjoyed playing, having Part 2 as my favorite. Thank you for watching, and remember, gaming is your road to adventure. Take care, friends.
I'm Sonic, a little ball of super energy in an extremely handsome package.